and welcome to another episode of the Marco Podcast.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode. Today, I have a guest on the show. I'm sitting here with Tanya Khanna. Tanya is a CFO and a financial strategist who helps businesses scale to 6 and 7 figures through strategic financial planning. So I know a lot of you have been asking about an episode on financial organization. So Tanya is here with us today to talk about that, and I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Thanks so much, Angela. And yeah, thanks again for having me on here today. I'm really excited to talk to everybody about, financial management, organizing your finances. It's such an important topic, just day-to-day life, business, whatever area of life you're in. It's crucial. So giving you guys a little bit of background on myself, I have a degree in finance and economics, and I've spent my entire career in the world of finance. I actually started my career on Wall Street, and I've also worked with large corporates to help them grow through strategic financial planning. And after having spent my time working with the big guys, I just knew that I have all this knowledge and skills that it takes to grow a business. I've seen it happen, I've done it, and I just know that I could use these skills to make a much bigger and tangible impact for smaller businesses that still do need this level of expertise to grow their business and their personal wealth, but are not in a place right now to either afford a CFO or a finance team, or just really need that added level of support in their businesses. So that's kind of my story of how I started my business, and what I'm hoping to be able to accomplish through it is just helping people grow and build their business and personal wealth.
Awesome. That's so cool. And I love that you kind of had an epiphany while you're just doing your regular day-to-day things, and you're like, oh wait, hey, other people need this, and I'm in a position that I can help with that. So I absolutely love that. And so thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that I had, as I said, a lot of my audience has asked about organizing your finances. And I'm like, I don't know, I need to find someone who's familiar with that, who can really talk about it. So why do you think that it's so hard for people, whether on a personal level or on a business level, to get their finances organized?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is people just don't know where to start. And that leads people to feel really overwhelmed. And a lot of times when you are feeling overwhelmed, your actions are based on your feelings. So your feelings kind of drive your actions. And when you're feeling overwhelmed, a lot of people mostly turn into the stage of inaction. And so it prevents them from even trying to take action because it feels so overwhelming. And then, like I said, just not even knowing where to start. And then another thing I think is people don't prioritize it. Everybody's got their own priorities and different priorities. And I think one of the biggest reasons why people might not prioritize it is because they don't understand or know the value of knowing your numbers and knowing your finances. And maybe that's not been correctly translated to them. And so because of that, with all of the millions of things that we're doing every single day in our lives, that's just not something that's making it to the top when you don't know why you should be doing it.
You're not really told to know your finances. You're just told that, okay, money is what makes the world go around. So you need to if you want to get anything, you have to have money, and money doesn't grow on trees. And then it's even worse. I know a lot of people talk about how they got into so much credit card debt and stuff because when they went to college, they didn't know anything about money or anything like that. And then it's just like, hey, get a free t-shirt, sign up for this credit card, or get a free pizza. And it's like, oh, I'm a college student, I could use a t-shirt, I could use this pizza. And then nobody's explained to them that you have to pay this money back at some point in time. So they didn't really understand it. And then by the time that they may have started understanding it, they were just so far gone from it. So it's not really a lesson that you get or that you hear a lot. I think people are trying to more so start teaching their kids at a younger age, or even when they get into high school and stuff like that. Like, okay, these are what finances are. This is how you spend money. Like, it doesn't just magically appear. You have to work for it. So I do agree that it can be scary if you don't know, like you said, where to start or what it is that you're even actually looking for, what you should be cutting out or adding to your budget. So I definitely agree with that. What would be a good way for someone to start?
So I'd say keeping it simple. So like I said, one of the biggest barriers to starting is just not knowing where. So let's start by just keeping it super simple. And there's a lot of ways that you can go about keeping it simple. I'd say one of the first is start with your goals. What are your money goals? What kind of money do you want to be bringing in? What kind of money do you want to be seeing in your bank account? Just start to get a little clear on what it is you really want to be seeing. Because then that can kind of be your compass. You kind of know where you're trying to go versus, okay, you have all this data of numbers and information and you don't even know where to start again because you don't even know what you're trying to accomplish with that information. Right. So start inwards and start with what is it that you want or what is it that your goals are. And then from there, that's kind of when you can start to think about things like a budget and, your income and things like that. And another thing I'd say to keep it simple when it does come to, okay, you've figured out what your goals are. From a mental standpoint, more of a mindset standpoint, when you're looking at your finances, you need to be able to separate the fact from the feeling. And so a lot of times, again, like I just mentioned, and what we just talked about, your feelings are driving these actions. People are scared to look at their finances. They're scared of what they might find. And depending on what they find, they will shame themselves. They'll feel guilty, all of these other negative emotions that are, again, inward. And so separating the fact from the feeling is so important. So you're looking at your numbers as what they are, which is just numbers, versus attaching them to mean something about yourself. That shift can be really powerful for people because that allows you to really look at things from a different lens and look at your numbers from the point of view of, okay, this is what it is. And now you have the data to actually compare to what your goals are. And that's kind of where you can get started. They're spending 50% of their income on marketing. And so you want to look at those categories as a percentage of what you're bringing in. And what that does is it kind of puts everything on a level playing field. And so now you can look at it so simply, like you can just look and see, okay, the highest percentage is in this marketing budget. And maybe that is what you want. You want to be investing in your marketing to grow your business, and that's fine. That's what we're doing with these numbers is we're looking at them and understanding them. So, okay, you see that 50% of your budget is going towards marketing and you're good with that. Or maybe you're not, and maybe you wanted to spend less money on marketing, or maybe you wanted marketing to only be 5 or 10% of the money that you spend. Now you know where you stand and you can start to make those decisions to change what that looks like.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense as well, because it's like you said, you may think, okay, I need to spend $500 a month on marketing, but if you look at it from a percentage view, it's like, well, do I really need to spend that much a month on marketing? Can I get the same results with spending $250 a month on marketing, or $125 a month on marketing? So I think I like that. I've never actually heard anyone say to break it down and look at it as a percentage. It's just always look at what you have going out versus what you have coming in, and a percentage can be more helpful too because that's smaller numbers. So it's smaller numbers, but it makes things seem easier, and it helps you, like you said, it helps you to get started with using them. What's a common misconception that you hear about when people are talking about organizing their finances, whether as a business or as on a personal level?
Yeah, I think that both at the business and the personal level, this seems to be the trend, which is the sales will fix everything, or your income will fix everything. So I think that people are seeing things as, okay, maybe you're not making or you don't have as much money in your bank account as you would like, and the instant fix to that is, okay, we need to go make more money. And that's not always the case. Obviously, making more money can help, but the amount of money you make is completely irrelevant if you do not have the financial discipline to manage it. Somebody who is making $1 million a year could have $0 in their bank account, and somebody making $100,000 a year could have $50,000. So it really comes down to those habits and how you are able to manage your finances, and not necessarily how much money you're bringing in. The amount of money you're bringing in does not directly correlate to the amount of money you have. So when it comes to fixing their finances or trying to, this isn't even about getting organized with finances. The organization comes kind of after. It's coming to the acceptance that you can fix whatever is going on internally first before you go towards all of these external marketing campaigns or multiple streams. Multiple streams of revenue is always good, don't get me wrong. But I mean, like the effort that goes into, finding all of those different ways to bring in more money, when you can just start inward and see what you can do better internally right now, how you can allocate the money that you do have better versus, just leaving it to external forces.
Right. Yeah, because you always hear people say, "Oh, I need to make more money. I need to make more money," and they're like, people who make more money are usually who are, even more in debt and who have a harder time like trying to get their money. And as you said, just because you make $300,000, that doesn't mean that you have more money than somebody who makes $30,000, because that person who makes $30,000 is probably looking for ways to budget their money or ways to cut costs, whereas the person who's making $300,000 are like, well, I make this amount of money, I don't need to budget and I don't need to cut costs. So I do think that that is a very common misconception. And even as much as you hear people talk about it and try to explain it, people still think that more money equals a better handling on money.
Yeah.
It's just, no, now you just have more money that you don't know what to do with. And so you're spending it on crazy things. So
Right. And if
yeah.
you've heard of the concept of lifestyle inflation,
Yes.
that is both, I mean, in personal finances as well as in businesses, where, the more money you're making, it's not going directly into your bank. Now, all of a sudden you realize like, oh, I need this thing that I at one point in time could not afford. And maybe it is a need, maybe it isn't. More often than not, it probably isn't. But then that's kind of, again, comes down to the discipline of things. And when you start to track and organize your numbers, you can really start to be more intentional about how you are allocating those numbers.
So I've been trying to be like more conscious with organizing my finances and everything lately. And so maybe a couple of months ago, one of my friends, she got me this budget book and it was really good. And I was like, okay, so I'll write down all my expenses in it and breaks it down into categories and stuff. And I kind of already knew like where some of my habits were, but just to go look, when you're sitting there and you're writing it down, you're like, oh, okay, I spent another $10 eating out today. Oh, I spent $15 eating out today. It's like, did I really spend $6 on that? You start to see it and you start to total up. And I would try to set a budget for myself and be like, okay, this month I'm only going to spend $100 eating out on food. And then I go look, because I would just save all my receipts and then I'd go back and compare it with like my bank statement on the Monday afterwards, not write everything down. And then at the end of the month, I'm like, that $100 turned into $250 really quickly. And it's like, where did I spend all of this money on? So I think it is good to definitely see it, because when you see it, that helps you to get a visual on it and be like, okay, where can I actually cut cost on it, versus just you trying to be like, oh, okay, well, I know I always spend money on this. And with me, some of the things that I thought that I was always spending money on, like I knew food was an issue for me right there. I just knew that was a problem, but I didn't realize that I'll spend like, a lot of money because I do crafting. So I would be spending up a lot of money like on Etsy, just buying like the little SVGs or PNGs to buy stuff. And I'm like, oh, well, that costs a good bit of money. That was $15, $20. No, it doesn't seem like a lot, but I'm thinking that I spent it on something else and that's where it went to. So I'm a visual person. So it has been very helpful for me to be able to look at it visually and see, okay, this is where I can cut out at. This is where I need to kind of cut back at. So you definitely need to know, in order to stop the habit, to build better habits, you need to know where everything is going first.
Yeah, absolutely. It all starts with the awareness.
Work with small businesses a lot. And I know that I do have a good bit of people who own small businesses who listen to this podcast. So what is the main problem that you see with small businesses and their finance?
So I'd say the biggest problem, it first starts, so the underlying problem that causes kind of all these other trickling problems is the lack of knowledge when it comes to managing your finances, how the different components kind of play together. People often just forget about taxes, for example, and that's a big cash issue when it comes to finances for a business is cash flow. Within the first 5 years, most businesses fail. And the number one reason is because of cash flow. What happens is maybe you're working with an accountant and they look at your financials, they put together your statements and they tell you are profitable because from an accounting standpoint, you are profitable. But an accounting profitability and cash in your bank are very different. The timing of things matter. And so the cash flow planning, cash flow management is super important there. And I think that that's where a lot of businesses struggle because they don't recognize or they lack the knowledge to know how those things are going to play out. You can see these charts, that show you your cash in and your cash out. And obviously those are things that you should be tracking because you always want to see your cash in being higher than your cash out. But another part that's really important is the timing of things. And so people will plan for this maybe they're having a really big income of money that they know is coming within the next 6 months. And so they start they start spending money based on assuming that they already have that. And then that's kind of where things kind of go sideways, where you don't actually have that money yet, but you're starting to spend as if you do. And that again comes from the side of, well, you need to really sit down and look at what's really going in and what's going out. Planning is super important going forward too. And so if for example, 6 months from now, it's maybe holiday season and your sales typically drop, you can't afford your expenses to be the way they are then as they are now. And so you need to start planning for those things to avoid those significant cash changes and maintain the cash that you want in your bank. And so I'd say that managing cash flow is probably one of the biggest areas that businesses trip up.
And I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that could possibly go for like personal as well, because with just thinking about what you said about spending before you get it, because you think that, oh, I'm getting this big influx in income in 6 months, with people thinking, oh, I'm going to get a bonus or I'm going to get a raise. So they go ahead and they start spending that money. And then for whatever reason, the bonus doesn't come through or the raise doesn't come through, or it's not as much as they thought. And now they've already spent that money. So now that's putting you behind on your goals. So yeah, so that's kind of like the don't count your chickens before they hatch.
Yeah. And I mean, on the flip side, know your expenses before they come. There's a lot of businesses will, have expenses on an annual basis. So maybe they have like annual subscriptions that they're only paying once for a whole year, or, taxes. Some businesses are not doing quarterly tax payments. They just choose to, have one giant tax bill in April and that's it. I have actually seen a business significantly struggle because of that, where cash flow was going fine for 11 of the 12 months, and then came tax season. They did not plan for tax season. They did not plan for the cash outflow for their taxes, and next thing you know, they had to let go of all of their employees because of it. So It's extremely important not just to not overspend early on before you have the money, but also to plan out those expenses so that you can build up that cash reserve that you need to take care of it without having a significant hit.
And so what advice would you give someone that's maybe either a small business or personal? I guess it's a two-part question. So a small business or for somebody who's personal, who's just getting started with trying to save for their financial goals and trying to build up to it. How would you tell them to kind of start? Like, what should they focus on first?
Well, first, start by trying to keep it as simple as possible. I would highly recommend leveraging softwares that already exist for you, where you can just connect your bank account details and it will just take that information and show you what's happening. Kind of take out that heavy lifting of, line by line going through what's happening. And that's kind of where you can start. If it is super overwhelming or you have no idea what you're about to get into, start there and you'll get to see those visuals and just get a maybe high bird's eye view of what's happening. For businesses, I'd recommend softwares like QuickBooks. What they do is you can connect your accounts and you'll be able to immediately see a chart that shows you your cash inflows and outflows. So even if you have no idea what that looks like, you'll just be able to see okay, your cash inflow bar is higher than your cash outflow. And cool. Yeah, and then you can start to go into things once you've gotten that big picture out of the way. Same thing with personal finances. I think a lot of banking apps already actually have that kind of feature in the app itself. So you don't even need to go do anything outside of it. Just start to leverage those things and look at it from a high level point of view. And then I think is a good time when you can start to dive a little deeper into what's happening. And I think number one is just tracking what's happening. Where is your money coming from? Where is your money going? What does that look like as a percentage? And does that align with those goals? So I think I'd mentioned this earlier in our conversation, start with your goals. That still stands. Definitely start with your goals. Okay. But when it comes to organizing the finances, start with some of those softwares that exist out there to get a bird's eye view of what is happening, and then detail it down into, the specifics of where your money is coming and going from. And when it comes to a time frame, I think, again, this can get overwhelming for people because maybe they haven't looked at their financial statements for several months, maybe even years. So maybe just start with the last 1 week instead of going too far down the rabbit hole. Just start with something small and simple and just go forward from there.
And then you just mentioned financial statements. So and people not looking at them for months or years, how often, I know my husband checks his bank account every day. How often do you recommend people to either one, like just look at their app to check their bank account, and then how often to like really sit down and look over your statements as well?
So I'd say at a bare minimum, when it comes to looking at your statements and the details of things, once a month. What I recommend is like maybe just like have a recurring like money date with yourself. Maybe it's like every third Friday at 10 a.m. This is just what you sit and do for an hour. That kind of helps you create that habit for it too. So yeah, for sure, at minimum 1 month. And ideally, like when it comes to this, the more you can do it, the better for sure. But I don't think you need to be doing it every single day because you're kind of putting in a higher level of stress on day-to-day activities. And that can be detrimental when it comes to how your outlook towards money and your outlook towards finances. And so maybe not something super excessive. Yeah, I have actually been in that same boat where when I first started investing, I'm checking my investments every single day. Like, oh no, I lost like $30 today in the market, and then I'm sad about it. And
Right.
so that level of scrutiny is not really helping you in any way. One day is not going to make a huge difference, but it does help in the longer term. If you are kind of doing this on a monthly basis, you start to know your patterns, or upcoming expenses that you are planning for. You kind of use that time to figure those things out. And so then when you are looking at things, then maybe you can continue to look at it at whatever pace you are, but you kind of know what to be expecting already.
Well, thank you so much. I don't have any more questions for you, but is there anything else that you would like to share? Anything else that we didn't touch on, or something that you're just like, I wish people knew this about finances?
I think the biggest thing that I'd like to close out with is just, I think I've already said this before, but separate your feelings from your finances is something that I really want to hit home, because it is, I'd say, the biggest barrier between people feeling like they can take action towards a better future versus being stuck in the loop and the cycle that they are in.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much, Tanya. And before we go, will you please tell everyone where they can find you at?
Yeah. So if you want more, learning about finances, tips, tricks on how to manage things day to day, you can follow me on my Instagram. It's at TK_financial. So I'm posting there all the time on how you can, use these tips and tricks to improve your finances. Outside of that, I work one-on-one with businesses, and you can learn more about who I am, how I can support you, the services I offer at my website. That is Tanya-Khanna.com.
Okay, awesome. And I'll also link everything into the show notes as well for everyone, so that they have easy access to it. So Tanya, thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking to you today, and I learned some things that I didn't know. So I really appreciate that. And I thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Please make sure to follow and rate the podcast whenever you listen.